Hey, beautiful people of the internet, how are you guys doing today? Hopefully great. So once again, we are going to be talking about Ember, and as you guys know, she got buffs. It wasn't a damage buff, but more of an energy economy buff. Mainly immolation, as the moment that you hit that max level of heat, it'll start draining your energy. With this new update, the energy drain per second is significantly low. The first ability, also known as Fireball, no longer is a hold for max damage, but instead you can just tap it and it'll increase the damage, of course, with a damage cap. Now, I've already made an Ember build not too long ago, and trust me, the build is still relevant as there is literally only changes to the energy economy. And if you guys want to know how to do so, go ahead and take a look at that video. There will be a link down in the description and of course at the top right. But before I continue any further, I do not want to go and make another Ember build video as it will be quite redundant, as literally nothing's really changed other than just a much better energy economy. Don't get me wrong, she still is very good and she definitely did need the increase to her energy economy, but trust me, I'm not going to go back and make literally the exact same video. But before I continue with the video any further, ladies and gentlemen, if you guys like to support me or the channel any further, do remember to leave a like on this video. It always helps me out substantially. Spartan, click the subscribe button for more Warframe videos and streams. So like I stated, I'm not going to be going over all the abilities in great detail. Instead, I'm just going to be talking about it in general. As you guys came here, just pause the video and then you can read the descriptions. Immolation, this is your damage reduction, whereby you are surrounded by fire. The longer it burns, the higher your damage reduction is. Blast or Fire Blast allows you to strip the enemy's armor and crowd control them. And finally, Inferno, you summon these fire comets, which will then come crashing down on the enemies. So this particular ability is based on line of sight, so the more enemies you see once you cast this ability, the more energy you will consume. So if you guys have if you guys can see like 10 enemies, and you've got this build in particular, I believe if memory serves me correctly, it's going to be 5 energy per enemy. So you see 10 enemies, 5 times 10, therefore you're going to be consuming 50 energy. As for the build, we are not going to be using any Forma because, well, this is Ember and this is just how we roll these days. For our aura, we have added Steel Charge, mainly for the more slots, but it does give us an increase to our melee damage. Next up is we are going to be using Arcane Vitality, Intensify, Transient Fortitude, and Power Drift to increase our power strength, except for Arcane Vitality, as that just basically doubles our heat damage. If we proc one instance of heat, a second proc will automatically be applied. Next up is we've got Rolling Guard, Adaptation, and Healing Flame to ensure our survivability. Healing Flame restores both our health and overguard, so once an enemy is lit, therefore we'll get our health and overguard back. And remember, with overguard, it'll always give you those invincibility frames. So think of it as how the old shield gating mechanic was, but instead now we've got a third piece of shield on top of our regular shield, if that makes sense. Now, Fireball Frenzy is an augment and allows us to infuse our weapons with heat damage, very similar to how Oberon's #1 ability works if you have his augment, which does scale based off of power strength. So the more power strength you guys have, the more damage you will deal for your weapons. So think of it as an additional element that is applied to all of your weapons. This includes your melee weapon, your primary, and your secondary. Now for the syam, we have unfortunately added Forma, and there's 2 of them. I absolutely love this melee weapon, so adding more Forma just makes more sense. And besides, the more Forma you guys add to your weapons, the more damage you'll then be able to squeeze out of them. But there is such thing as too much Forma, and essentially it does become wasteful. The build focuses on the syam's projectile, which can be activated on heavy attack. The mods are as follows. We have Prime Pressure Point for more base damage, Condition Overload to increase our damage even further if an enemy is affected by a whole bunch of elements, Killing Blow for even more base damage and also a much faster wind up speed, Blood Rush to increase our crits, Organ Shatter and Gladiator Might to increase our critical damage, because let's be honest about one thing, we want to see big boy numbers, so why not? And we've also got Volcanic Edge for even more heat damage, which technically this should be Ember's signature weapon because it deals heat damage by default, and we're just adding even more heat damage on top of everything else. We are also going to be using Disciple's Merit, which allows you to activate the Tenno secret art called Tenno Kai, which gives you a free heavy attack after a few hits or after an X amount of hits. In my case, if you guys hit the enemy 6 times, you'll then be able to activate your free heavy attack and never ever lose your combo multiplier. All you really have to do is just pay attention. Now in the Arcanes department, we are going to be rolling around with melee exposure for more corrosive damage. Now granted, corrosive won't work that well with the build because you are going to be stripping the enemy's armor constantly, and corrosive deals less damage to flesh. But I've noticed bigger numbers with this arcane. But hey, if you guys can add a different arcane that's better than exposure, then more power to you. So we are currently in the simulacrum, and I do want to talk about a couple of things as I have forgotten some things, and one of which is we are currently rolling around with 5 Arcane Amber shards, and each shard will give us more effectiveness on our energy orbs. In other words, the moment that we pick up 1 energy orb after we kill an Xmas unit, all of our energy has been restored to its upper limits, which is very good for our energy economy. Therefore, I can free up a slot for Arcane Energize. The second thing I also do want to mention is we are going to be using generic, which will be giving me even more power strength. Therefore, we're going to have even bigger numbers if we activate the operator ability. The second part I forgot to mention to you guys is our companion, which we are going to be using a mod called Tenacious Bond. So it doesn't matter who you are using, it all matters, are you able to put up, are you able to surpass 50% critical chance? And the answer to that is yes. So Tenacious Bond, we don't really care about the primary activation of it, we only care about the secondary ability of it. And that is our critical damage multiplier will be increased by 1.2 times if our companion's critical chance is above 50%. So we are going to be using the Volkalock. We can use any other weapon so long as it has a relatively high critical chance multiplier by default without any mods on whatsoever. So with the Volkalock, because it's got a very high critical chance by default, by adding critical delay, you'll be at 105 critical chance, which is perfect for Tenacious Bond. Doing so, you'll then see much bigger numbers. So it seems that I'm actually forgetting a lot of things throughout this video. My bad, I apologize. And that is our primary and our secondary weapons actually do play a role in this build. And that is the arcanes that are used. So we are going to be using primary and secondary dexterity, which is going to give us an additional 15 seconds combo duration. Each arcane will give us 7.5. 7.5 plus 7.5 is 15 seconds if you guys didn't know how to do basic maths. And I can prove it to you, and as you guys can tell, if you look at the stat, it says right here, combo duration 20 seconds. Now if you didn't know, if you guys go and lose your combo duration, then your damage will absolutely plummet. Therefore your kills per second will be reduced because you're not dealing any proper damage. By you having more combo duration, it'll make your life so much easier when you guys are actually able to go and retain your combo multiplier. So just so that you guys know, this is how I have such a long combo multiplier without actually adding combo duration onto the build itself. So now we are going to be talking about real damage. So what we're going to be doing is simply just group up all the enemies, just because it's just something I do. Once we do that, hit them with your third. As you guys can see, they've been crowd controlled and armor stripped. Activate our first ability to infuse our weapon with heat damage. Tenno has been activated. As you guys can tell, we've just wiped the floor with them with 5.9 million damage. And of course, just make sure that you are always fire blasting, otherwise you're going to get caught with your pants down. And remember, while you guys are in combat, the moment that you activate fire blast, it's always recommended to activate your fourth or your first ability. Therefore, you guys can always have your damage reduction and your one-time armor strip. Instead of hitting the enemies twice with the armor strip, you can just hit them once. And every time you activate your third ability, not only will they be armor stripped, but they'll also be crowd controlled. But Healing Flame will take full advantage and not only healing your health up, as you guys can tell at the top right, but also you guys will be able to just get even more overguard and just continuously take full advantage of invincibility flames. So not only will you have all this fire that's all over the whole map, you'll always be alive and you'll always be kicking absolutely booty. So ladies and gentlemen, if you guys would like to know how to go from 0 to hero as fast as humanly possible, I highly recommend you guys go ahead and take a look at the rest of my videos. There will be some links down in the description, and there'll be some of them at the top left, the top right, depending on where YouTube decides to go and put them. So once again, if you want to guys go from 0 to hero quickly, go ahead and take a look at those videos. Do remember to leave a like on this video. It always helps me out substantially. Spartan, click the subscribe button for more Warframe videos and streams. We also do have a Discord server, so if you would like to go and hang out with me or take part in one of our future giveaways whenever those come out these days, go ahead and join a Discord server. Once again, links in the description. I'm Make Like a Banana and Split. See you guys in the next Warframe video, stream, or YouTube short.